Hey everyone, welcome to the Greg's Garage Pod with co-host Jason Pridmore. I'm Greg White, and Jason Pridmore is hanging around in the background somewhere. Hi, JP.
Background. I'm back there somewhere, G-Dub. Always back there somewhere. But yeah, how are you?
Music. I'm good, man. Just enjoying the East Coast, buddy. You know what I mean? The sun's shining. We're getting finally into the 70-degree weather here for at least a couple of weeks, and got some modifications done to my street bike and gonna head out on the road, I think.
At least for a couple of weeks. Isn't it in the 70s all the time back there?
No, not here.
Too bad for you guys.
Not here.
Yeah, no, it's great out here. It's like it right now, but we're under like severe wind alerts. Not where I live, but sort of 15, 20 minutes from here, it's blowing 50, they're saying. So, we got the whole we got the Santa Ana winds and the fire dangers that you don't have back there right now, but we get that. And so we're dealing with that a little bit, but it's been a pretty fun. I got to ride last weekend. That was good. I actually went and played golf yesterday. So
how was it? How was the ankle and how was the wrist?
Ankles just got to get done. It just is. But I was at Chuckwalla all weekend, and we did one-on-one. We had a bunch of one-on-ones out there Saturday, Sunday, and then I hung out a little bit Monday because a few of the boys were out there testing their Phillip Island bikes for Phillip Island in Australia come January. So Josh was out there, Hayes, Michael Gilbert, Larry Pegram. They were out there just kind of running in their Phillip Island bikes. And so I hung out a little bit, rode with some people, just friends. It was great. It was my birthday over the weekend. So people were all weekend long. I was feeling the love in that. And then
you got to tell people how old you are?
I'm the big 5-0 G-Dub, just
big
like
5-0. Me? No. No. What?
Just like you.
That's
just
right,
like
baby.
You.
That's right. Class of 87. Hello.
Yeah, I can't even remember that far back. But yeah, so then I was supposed to go to Texas, to play in that tournament with Jimmy Whitten, who races in the MotoAmerica Twins Cup stuff, and it's next week in Texas. So I thought I need to go up to the club, see if I can even swing a golf club. And I did, which was nice. And so I'm booking a ticket. I'm going to fly to Dallas next week, go play a little bit of golf.
Oh, that's great.
And more because it's just the historical side of going to the Colonial. And Jimmy's been such a good guy, good friend this year to me as I've gotten to know him more. And it was something I really wanted to do because I haven't done anything this year. It's been kind of a shit show, as you know. So, it's just it'll be a nice little distraction. I got one-on-ones on Monday to do at Buttonwillow, and then I'm leaving Tuesday for Texas.
Ah, very good. Well, like I said, I'm going to get on the bike, and then today, this company Bowtech, who I bought their bow and then won, those couple national championships this year.
Yeah,
they introduced a brand new bow here like 2 hours ago. So I'm going to go down to a shop, shoot it, see how I like it, and throw some money down on the table and go for that bow. Hopefully, maybe we'll see, for next season. And for archery, we start indoor season. So those people that are not hunting right now, they're all doing different stuff for indoor. So it's like, shut the door, shoot 20 yards. It's so boring. So I'm trying to drag outdoor season out as much as possible. And I'm thinking, Jason, that I might end up buying an ADV bike, an adventure touring bike.
Yeah.
Possibly a KTM.
I saw that you did a post about that or something.
Yeah.
And, I can't remember where I saw it, but I did see that.
Well, I've been thinking about it, obviously, and it's expensive. And, you and I don't make a ton of money. But so I'm thinking about it, either a used one or getting one of those new KTMs, whatever. I have a buddy of mine who in North Carolina who builds bicycle racks for motorcycles. So as long as you have like grab handles on the back of your bike, he can build you a bicycle rack. So you basically take the front wheel off your bicycle and you attach it to the, this bicycle rail that he builds. And then you put the front wheel on and you can ride around with bicycle on the back, unhook it, and then go for a bicycle ride, which is really cool. And you'd be surprised, dude. You don't even feel the bicycle. Kind of like if you have a really good passenger on your bike, you don't really feel him. But he has told me that if I get a motorcycle that he can build something on, that he'll build me like a bow case holder so I can carry my bows around with me to go shoot, so I could ride my motorcycle and go shoot archery at the same time. So if I get an ADV bike, I'm going to take it straight to 2x2 cycles and see if the guy will build me a rack for it. So that'll be pretty cool. But anyway, are you still there?
Yep. Sorry.
Oh.
No, I am. I put you on mute because I was coughing. So there you go. That's real podcast stuff right there.
It's real podcast stuff. Now, Jason, we teased people. Okay.
Yeah, we did.
We teased
a little
people
too much,
said,
maybe.
and said that we thought, well, I said that I thought there was going to be some juicy stuff. And I did that because you and I both know the motorcycle industry, racing industry. Sometimes we get information, we're promised it's going to come out, and sometimes it doesn't, right? So it didn't come out, some of the stuff that we wanted, but it's still out there. So,
well, I think that what people need to realize is that if we were a mainstream, if this was a mainstream sports, if we're talking football or baseball, I mean, there's just so much stuff that goes through those channels of gossip and things that are going on. And legitimately right now, we've got some things happening over in World Superbike. We got some things happening here at MotoAmerica that I think are going to be exciting. Hopefully if they, as they start to materialize. And as well, I think, there's stuff in MotoGP. I mean, we kind of know a little bit about a lot of stuff that's going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not as mainstream. So what Greg and I really don't want to do is we don't want to compromise anything or get things getting out there, even if it's, even if you're not giving up the people that are telling you some of the things that they've told us. We don't want it to get out there. We don't want things to get too premature, in case all the parties obviously haven't been reached out to and that kind of things. So, I mean, it's going to make it really good for our podcasts in the next 2 or 3 weeks, because there are some things going on out there that Greg's pretty privy to, and I know a few things, which is nice. So
yeah,
we're a day late because we thought there might be some stuff going, and it just didn't materialize overnight.
But don't believe everything you read on the internet. And I'm going to caution people to say, look, if you're reading something from someone who doesn't live in the paddock full time, don't take it as gospel. I mean, I've been getting texts and tweets saying, "Oh, I read this here and that there," and it's like, look, guys, I get that maybe part of the story is true, but you got to wait, because there's a lot of things that have yet to be decided. And just because there's a rumor doesn't mean it's been decided just yet. So some of those pieces need to be in place. And then, of course, people have jobs like PR people, and, so they need to get out press releases and stuff. But Jay, you're 100% right. I mean, we're not Adam Schefter. We're not like, in NFL where everybody's trying to get the scoop on people and any rumor becomes blah, blah, blah. We're not trying to do that because we don't want to burn our bridges, because
I think what's funny about our job, though, that a lot of people don't realize is that because we've been lucky enough to be kind of people get to listen to on MotoAmerica weekends, they come to us with a lot of different things, as far as like, I can't get your channel, or I can't do this, right? And it's like, Greg and I don't make a lot of those decisions, but in the same sides, we've got the same sides. We do have. We got to make sure that people are happy and that we're not just blowing our covers with certain things. So, but there are some cool things happening, which I'm very, very happy to see, especially since our season only just ended a couple of weeks ago. The fact that there's already a lot of things in motion and people really trying to hopefully get the series, continuing to be bigger and better for next year. I think on all sides, though, World Superbike's got a lot of intrigue right now. There's some things happening there. MotoGP, even, Greg. I mean, it's just it's going to be very fun next 4 weeks.
And I think Jason, looking at the MotoAmerica side of things, it's important really to understand that had this been this time last year, people were like, gosh, what are we going to do? What teams are going to stay? What's going to happen? What's happened is that with the MotoAmerica Live Plus and with it Superbike being on Fox Sports, is that the popularity has grown rapidly in one season, and it has started to spark the interest of some people that haven't been interested. It's also possibly changed the direction of some companies that thought they were going to go in a certain direction. So that's part of like the intrigue in it, of what's actually going to happen, who's going where, what's going to, who's coming in, who's going, not because every year it's the same thing. Some people leave, some people stay, some people come in,
right.
It's good like that. But anyway, so sorry for everyone who we teased and then you turned in. It just didn't happen what we thought was going to happen today, but it will happen. And then the people that are involved in some of these announcements that are coming down the pipe, we're definitely going to get on the podcast, including, by the way, Jonathan Ray. He was scheduled to be on the podcast this week. He and I just couldn't connect because he got on a plane Tuesday to head down to Argentina and things got a little messed up, but he's wants to come back on the podcast and talk about his championship, and it'll be great to see what happens after Argentina. But we did have racing last weekend, Jason. We had MotoGP on tap.
Yep.
Obviously great things happened in MotoGP. Quartararo on the Yamaha led for a lot of the race. Marquez threw him a couple of shots, but in the end, Marquez ends up beating him by a tenth of a second. Maverick Viñales finishes third. Dovizioso in fourth. Rins in fifth. Morbidelli, Joan Mir, Valentino Rossi all the way back in eighth. And I say that because obviously Valentino's, Valentino. Petrucci, Nakagami, Bagnaia, Crutchlow in 12th. You have Pol Espargaro in 13th. Jack Miller, who had, his bike basically didn't start at the beginning. He had to wheel the thing off and start from pit lane. Good run by him to actually get 2 points. And then Iannone. And then, of course, Jason Marquez wins the championship, is eighth, the whole 8-ball, thing going on. But before we talk about Marquez, which I think really we should probably spend a moment talking about Marquez, maybe after we talk about GP in more detail. But let's talk about the race itself. What did you see in that race?
Well, obviously there was two guys at this race that were head and shoulders above, and we've seen this kind of going through the year where certain people stepped up. Rins, obviously, Dovi has stepped up at some of the rounds. Viñales as well, and Quartararo has done the same. Quartararo has been an incredible qualifier. Now he's starting to become more of a podium frequent guy. I think he's definitely a breath of fresh air as Quartararo. But Greg, I just watched this race, and you just kind of it's the inevitable sitting there waiting to happen. And you can just see Marquez just kind of relaxing. And I thought the fact that Quartararo went after him in the last corner on the last lap was great. I don't think he's scared of him, which is good. And it could be a deal where as that bike gets better, as the Yamaha gets better, if they give him a better bike over the course of the next year or two, if that motorcycle becomes a little bit more competitive, then he could be the guy that could take the fight to Marquez. I mean, let's not forget, Viñales was only 1.3 back, but it never felt that close throughout the whole race, did it? I mean, it was always like he was so far back. If they can get kind of the things that he needs to get sorted from that beginning to middle part of the race where he doesn't lose so much time, I think Viñales could be there all the time. But Marquez is just too good right now. 8 championships, Greg, 8 world championships. He's only 26 years old. I saw an interesting little piece where Rossi talked about, Marquez is going to surpass him. And, he left a couple on the table back in the day. And, he more or less says Marquez basically prevented him from winning one in 2015 when all the ruckus went down between him and, when Lorenzo won the championship. So I think that when you look at certain things and you look at stuff, Marquez right now is in a class of his own on a bike that, arguably nobody else can really ride right now. Marc Marquez is making that Honda work. And I mean, he's going into, what do we got, Greg? 4 rounds to go, don't we? We have Japan and Malaysia, Phillip Island and Valencia. I mean, I don't know. He's just going to let it all hang out now. Now it's just go collect bonus checks for wins.
Yeah, he's just unbelievable. And the changes that Honda made. And what's interesting is that there was a big ruckus, obviously, after he wins the championship. I'm getting emails from HRC all the time talking about there's going to be a press release with him. I think it was Monday or whatever. But one of the engineers from Honda had made a comment saying that Marc came to us and basically said that I want to be able to save the rear tire for when I need it. So I want to be able to go into the corner easier than I have been. You know what I mean? Like, that's been the big deal.
Yes.
And which really just changes the balance of the bike. And you can see that he's able to work the front of that bike really hard. And which is interesting because of the way the Michelin works. When you had Bridgestone, which was a tire that the lap times were made on the front tire, and then you switched to Michelin and the lap times were made on the rear tire, that Marc is kind of basically engineers have developed the bike around a Michelin, trying to blend some of the old Bridgestone idea into it. So he's able to save that rear tire until when he really needs to use it. And that's why he uses that hard front and then the softer rear tire. And so it's not just the guy, Marquez, just racing, like being unbelievably talented. It's a kid, a 26-year-old, a man who also works with the available resources he has, explains it in a way that the engineers can translate it to give him a motorcycle that he can win on. And Jay, the question becomes, who cares if no one else can ride it? right?
I agree with you 1,000% on that. I agree with you. It's adaptability. And I mean, obviously Crutchlow's a tremendous rider. Nakagami, poor Lorenzo is just, I don't even have words for what that guy's going through right now. But it does make you think that Marquez is a little bit special. And, Greg, we don't even have this on our rundown today, but let's talk about this crash that he had in free practice one. The neatest thing about these races now are they come in a time zone out here in California where, at 10, 9, 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night, I can sit up and watch these things instead of, early morning stuff. So I'm watching that free practice one, and you and I haven't even discussed this, but that crash he had was very, very interesting to me for the simple reason that when it happened, I was lucky enough. I was actually texting back and forth with Simon Crafar during the telecast. He was, I've got to know Simon a little bit, and when he was taking little breaks, we were going back and forth with some chatter. But the crash to me, if I didn't know any better, and I'm just curious to get your view on this, the crash to me, it almost seemed mechanical because it was in a part of the track where he had just short shifted to third. I don't know Malaysia. I've obviously, or Thailand. I've seen the track a bunch now. I feel like I know it, but it almost seemed he wasn't going as fast as he needed to go. Poog came on and said that, he got into some dirt on his out lap. Michelin guys were kind of like, we checked the tire right before, they took the tire warmer off. It was perfect temperature. We checked it right before they took it off the stand and he went out. Tire temperature was perfect. But if you listen to, if you have a keen ear and you go back and you listen to the onboard from where it's going out the back of the bike, it sounds like something breaks to me on that bike, because I'm going to ask you, put you on the spot. When was the last time you saw Marc Marquez high side? And when was the last time you saw him high side on the entry to a corner? And don't you think that if the track was dirty or if there was something wrong, that one other person in the session would have had the same issues, kind of like we saw at Barber this year when we were throwing those medium tires on? We had a lot of incidents because of a lot of guys hadn't been on that tire, as well as track conditions were brand new. So I guess the questions I have for you is, when was the last time you saw him high side? When was the last time you saw him high side on corner entry?
He doesn't high side very often. So let me think. Has it been 2 years maybe he's high sided?
I couldn't remember the last time.
He low sides his brains out, like no big deal, but he doesn't high side very often. Now, one of the things I read that had some technical stuff in it was there was speculation that the tire wasn't up to temperature. And look, yes, off the tire warmer, it may have been up to temperature off the tire warmer, but that's not the actual temperature that it's going to race at or ride at. So there was speculation that you had to use a harder compound tire, like he was on a harder compound tire than he normally is, and that the engine braking strategy kind of took over and created the problems. And I'm really trying to wrap my head around that particular situation. So I could see if I could see where that would actually be the case. I know that Mark tends to like to cover the rear brake with his foot. Because when he brakes so hard, he'll lift the rear end off the ground, which sometimes fools the engine braking system. So when it hits the ground, the computer gets confused. And so he adds
he's a little bit of rear brake to keep it down type of thing?
To keep the computer from not being fooled, or to save what the computer does. So I know that part kind of lives somewhere. So I can see that excuse. Like, okay, it's a harder compound rear tire. It wasn't up to temperature. He gets into the corner. There was something going on, where the computer gets fooled, and boom, to the high side it goes. The other explanation is, which by the way, if you really strip that down, that's electrical. And having known Freddie Spencer for as long as I have known Freddie Spencer, he used to tell me that every time something broke on the bike, they would just go, it's electrical. Like the engine blew up, electrical. Clutch cable fell off, electric. You know what I'm saying? So this is a fancy way of saying electrical. So something definitely could have gone wrong. But as you know, Jason, if Honda has an engine failure, like if it seized, if it locked up or whatever, if something happened in the transmission, whatever, they want to squelch it PR-wise. But keep in mind, there's only a certain number of engines they have anyway. So we could find out if after he crashed, and I haven't done the research, if the engine got replaced or not. Because
and the thing I bring up, and please understand, I'm not throwing Honda or anybody under the bus. I just felt like it was very odd. It was a really strange crash. Didn't see any other crashes like that all weekend. Not one did we see from anybody. And I think to myself, the announcers, commentators rather, he went out too hard on a Colt. And I'm like, the guy didn't go out too hard. Watching him, he was not going too hard. The second thing, and this would be a great question for engineer kind of guys, and I know that obviously you'll have something to say about this, but if you look at the way the rear wheel was ripped off the back of the bike, it's been, in my time of knowing some of the things that go on with crashes and stuff, when a tire or when a wheel is continuously rotating and it hits the ground, even if it's sideways, it generally will take some of the forces because the tire is actually rotating around, and it will absorb some of the initial hit. To me, when I see how violently the tire was it was taken off of the rim was snapped and the swing arm looked like it was broke. So it would seem to me almost like the rear wheel had actually stopped.
Yep. And
so when it flipped and it hit, it took the brunt of everything and literally ripped the rear wheel off the bike and the tire. So the amount of force and the amount of stuff that looked like it just looked fishy to me. And man, it wouldn't have mattered if Marquez sat out the rest of the year. Nobody was winning the championship, but it was good to see that he didn't get hurt. The fact that he comes out, Greg, and I don't know if you probably didn't get to watch it, but free practice 2, he comes out, and on the third lap of free practice 2, after he had gone to the hospital and come back, he went quicker than he did in FP1.
Unbelievable.
By 3. Yeah, he's in a league of his own. There's nobody right now that can touch him. Yes, I think Quartararo is amazing. It's only a matter of time before he wins. But I also feel like, it would have been interesting to see Marquez lead that race and see if he really pushed, if Quartararo could have, that last lap, Marquez was pulling away from him, and then Quartararo made a pretty big lunge in the last corner. I just thought it was a fantastic race on that side of it. I think that there's some other concerns when you look at this, Greg. What has happened to Ducati? They're 11 seconds back in that race. I don't think either one of us could have imagined going into the weekend that they'd be that far back. Rins, Morbidelli's probably scratching his head a little bit about what his teammates doing. So I think that there's just a lot of things within MotoGP right now that they're really interesting. And now these next, they go 3 back to back to back, don't they? After this, I think they go Japan, Sepang.
They go Japan, Phillip Island,
Australia.
They go Japan, Phillip Island, then Sepang.
Then Sepang.
Yeah,
back to back to back. So we'll have a lot to go through. Did you watch Moto2?
Oh yeah, I watched Moto2. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Moto2 was great. And again, just like he did last year, Luca Marini seems like he's ready to get rolling all year long. He's just kind of been not that great, and then all of a sudden he just goes out and dominates this race by a little over 2 seconds. And it's so funny when we say that you're dominating by just 2 seconds, but in Moto2 or Moto3, when you get away, it's pretty good. Over Brad Binder, Iker Lecuona ends up 3rd. Augusto Fernandez chips away at that points just a little bit. He beats Marc Marquez for 5th. And then Jorge Martin, the best run we've seen from the current Moto3 world champion. Luthi, a little bit surprising there in 7th. Bulaga. Chantra ends up 9th, so he kept the home crowd on their feet. Bezzecchi 10th. Bastianini. Gardner ends up 12th after being up front early. Locatelli, Schroeder, and Nagashima rounded out your top 15. When you look at this race, Marini did the same thing last year, Greg. He put in these tremendous results at the end of the year. I know he had shoulder surgery at the beginning, but this is the kind of run that you go on where, now I think that he could be a real threat for the rest of the year. Marquez riding very heady, though, finishing 5th in this race and not getting ahead of himself.
Yeah, because with 10 laps to go, Marquez started to get worked. I mean, he definitely started to get worked.
He did.
People started pushing him back and all that kind of stuff. Now, for Marini, Jay, what's really I thought was interesting was he's had 69 GP starts, and it's only his 2nd win. And so it's, I think for Marini, I don't know what the deal is with the Sky Racing Team VR46, situation. Meaning, is he still around? Is he not still around? But I wonder if Marini's the type of guy that goes, contracts are up, time to get moving. But the ride he put on was impressive, and what we did see of him, he looked perfectly in control. It's one of those where you're going what is he doing differently from Binder and Lecuona and Fernandez and those guys that had a really good battle? I love the battle for 2nd place, but it was for 2nd place. And
Correct.
And those guys, Marquez, Fernandez, Licowona, and Binder really started to rough each other up. Now, here's a question I have for you, though, Jason. Okay, so a Kalex chassis wins, and now you have KTM second and third, and we know KTM's made an update, but KTM's also announced they're pulling out of Moto2, and they're going to focus on Moto3 and MotoGP. With the results that KTM has had recently, specifically with Brad Binder, too early? You think it was a bad decision to pull out of Moto2? You know what I mean?
Well, the amount of money they must be spending in GP and in Moto3, KTM is beyond involved in every single class out there, which is tremendous. I think so obviously resources wise, they probably felt like they weren't getting the results out of the KTM. But boy, Greg, I agree with you now. Like, you have to start to think to yourself a little bit, like maybe it was a little bit early, because it definitely seems like they're coming into their own now. And we see, what do we have, Greg? We got 1, 2, 3. We got 5 KTMs, I believe, in the top 10, or four of them in the top 10. So I agree with you. Yeah, like it might be just a little bit too early for them to jump out of it. But it's good to see, Brad Binder. It goes to show you how bad that thing was. And I know Licowona's on the current. He's on the updated one, but man, Binder, some races this year was like back in 18th, 20th, like must have been a bit of a struggle, but they've really come on the last 6 rounds specifically, where they're up there. And watching this race, you could definitely see that chassis has definitely got a lot better. I was really impressed with Licowona. I thought he was amazing. I think he's going to be a true contender next year. With obviously Marquez is still going to be there and things, but I think Licowona could be a thorn in some people's side next year.
Is Marquez a done deal? He's staying in Moto2, right?
Yeah, he's staying in Moto2, and he's going to be, with Sam Lowe. So, and right now, when you look at the points tallies, he's got 40 on Augusto Fernandez. So it's looking good for him. But man, three race weekends in a row, a lot can happen now. A lot can happen in these next flyaways. And yeah,
Marquez leads that championship 224 to 184. So Alex Marquez over Augusto Fernandez, which obviously having the brothers as world champions would be awesome. And then Binder has worked his way up into third place, only 4 behind Fernandez, with Thomas Luthi in 178. So it's like 184, 180, 178, 175 for Navarro. That whole group's tight, but Marquez is definitely walking away with it. All right, Jay, on to Moto3, because Moto3 was drama, as the Canadians could say, with 14.
Do you say drama or drama? What do you say drama?
I say drama, but the Canadians say drama. Remember Carl?
Oh, so now you're throwing the Canadian thing in.
Yeah, Carl Steyer, remember? He's like, drama. And I'm like, okay, drama it is.
Yeah, Carl.
So yep. I love to recognize my Canadian, brother in there. So yeah, the drama.
Dude, it's so funny because we throw some of our friends throw them in this thing. I cannot believe how many of them actually listen to us.
I know.
I don't know why they listen to us, but they do. Anyway, sorry.
No.
Go on with your drama, Greg.
I don't understand why either. I don't listen to us, that's for sure. But so in the Moto3 class, it was Albert Arenas who gets his first win, and then Della Porta in second, Lopez in third, Ramirez in fourth, Foggia was in fifth, Vietti sixth, Toba in seventh, Stefano Neppa. I haven't heard of Neppa in most of the season being up in the mix. Fernandez, Arbolino, Salik, Kornfeld, Rossi, Garcia, and Yurchenko rounding out the top 15. Couple of non-finishers in this one. Ayagura, who got taken out. Booth Amos, Garcia, Sasaki, Nut Crash, Suzuki, and McPhee in this one. So margin of victory, Jason, 0.2 of a second. Obviously, there was a big group of people. 0.6 of a second covered the top 5. But as I remember it correctly, it was 9 riders in the lead group with 2 laps to go. And I mean, the lead group, they were all over each other. And then, of course, I told you my boy Ayagura, who has no idea who I am, but Agura gets taken out. Mingo, that was a taken out, dude. Oh. Brutal. But anyway, tell me about the race, Jay. I loved it. I thought it was a great result, and it looked good.
It's just fun, as usual, to watch. I think that the big news is and see, this is one of those situations, Greg, where race control gets involved, and I kind of see their point.
Yeah.
Darren Binder, who we've talked about this year, he's kind of one of the bigger guys, and kind of shoves his way in there and makes a lot of contact and this and that. But I mean, look, at the end of the day, he rolls into that last tight right-hander and cleans out McPhee, takes Canet with him, the guy who's 2 points out in the championship. I just, look, when you're racing, and I get it, when you're racing, you can hate a guy. You can not like a guy. You could be racing hard, but you've got to be conscious of, there's a professional etiquette that you have to try to sustain. Otherwise, everybody in the pits is going to hate you. Everybody in the paddock's not going to want to be around you. And you become a lot more of a target off circuit. You become a guy that people don't want to have ride for you. They don't want to give you a ride. And Darrell Binder is slowly, in my opinion, becoming that guy in Moto3. We've seen him right up at the front. We've seen him do very well. Last year, he was on the KTM team and didn't come into his own till the end, and they'd given his ride away. I really believe that he would have been a contender had he stayed on the same team, but his results weren't fitting of that until the end of the season. But he kind of bullies his way through, and he just doesn't seem to care. Greg, it was only like 2 laps later, he did the exact same thing again in the exact same corner, and I can't remember who it was to. But Darrell Binder cleans out Canet, who's really put a nice year together, as well as McPhee. McPhee, isn't neither one of those two guys. Canet maybe not so much in the past. I think Canet's ridden way better this year than he has in the past, because he was a little bit of that bowling ball. I remember him at Jerez a couple of years ago, taking about 5 guys out, if you remember. But he's really kind of kept his nose clean this year, kept himself in the championship. To see his championship end in a slow corner 3 laps in is a hard one to swallow as a racer. But I just wish that I could see Darrell Binder just use a little bit better discretion, because he definitely could have, as we all know, a lot of races left, but could definitely play with the outcome of the championship. The guys at the front, yeah, I agree with you, Greg. It was a great race. Unlike Mazzano, when we saw Canet have problems there, Della Porta went backwards at Mazzano and really didn't take advantage of an opportunity to score extra points. I believe he was like 8th or 10th or something. Here he takes a little bit more advantage of it and ends up second to really get that 20 points that Canet didn't obviously get any. So it was good on that side of it for Della Porta.
What's fun for me to think about is if you look at MotoGP and what Marquez did, a lot of the conversation about Marquez, like, oh, he didn't have to lunge at Quartararo and make the pass and try to win the race and do all this stuff to win the championship. He could have just sat back and basically let the all he needed was 2 points ahead of Dalby to win the race. And so that's a talking point. Like, wow, he didn't rest on his laurels. He was aggressive. He went out and won the championship. The thing that I find that it's going to be very fun is here you have Lorenzo Della Porta in the Moto3 class, who is at 204 over Canet, who's got 182. So my math says a 22-point advantage with 3 races to go. Jay, I don't care what the point spread is. I mean, unless you actually have the championship wrapped up in Moto3, there is no such thing, because you are going to get to the last lap and you're going to have a group of 9 riders. So Della Porta has got to be as aggressive as ever to win this championship. Marquez could have sat back and won the championship, no problem. But the talking point was he was aggressive. Della Porta cannot rest. He cannot lay back. He's got to go out there for these next 3 races, or whatever it is, 4 races, and he's got to be aggressive and grab that championship, or else it's going to slip right through his fingers.
Don't you feel like in this class, you've almost got to do your best. You've almost got to do literally your best to forget the championship if you're a front running contender, because there is every weekend going to be 15 or 20 guys. So I just feel like you have to keep your aggression up as much as you can and let the chips fall where they may. I mean, this class that never really gets spread out, does it? And it seems like it doesn't really matter. The action happens at the front. It happens in the middle. It happens at the back. Guys are running into each other, cleaning each other out. I mean, it just seems like there's not a safe place is what I'm trying to say, Greg. So you go into one of these races, and if you go, okay, I got to be a little bit safe. You do that, you're back in 13th, back in 18th.
That's my point.
Right?
Exactly.
That's your point, right?
Yep.
So it's like, it's almost like you can't plan a race as if you would when you have a race that's going to play itself out, where you're going to have margins of victory between first and 10th of 20 seconds. I mean, look here, first through 10th here was 9.1 and the first 7 guys came across the line 1.2 seconds. That's nothing.
So Jay, if you look at the championship, right, you have Della Porta sitting at 204. But if you go back to McPhee, you can go back to Antonelli as well. He's at 118. All right. So mathematically, the top 6 have a chance at this championship. And normally when we say mathematically, it's almost in air quotes, isn't it? You're like, this guy.
Correct.
But I honestly think, looking at this, if you have Della Porta, Canet is in second at 182, or Arbolino is at 161, Ramirez at 136, and McPhee at 126. All right. You think, oh my God, 204 to 126, no chance. But honestly, there's no way that you're going to get me to make a statement that says McPhee is completely out of winning this championship. There's no way. Because I'm telling you, Della Porta's fallen off the bike, Canet's been crashed out, Arbolino's had his problems. Like, it is not a done deal. In the top 5 that are still in it, I think have a better chance of winning this championship than any other class that I've ever been around with such a point spread. Am I making any sense whatsoever about it? But
yeah, no, 100%. I agree with you. Yeah. No, because it could just, all of it can change so quickly.
Yeah. All of it can change.
It could just all change. I mean, this year it's weird because Canet's got taken out now a couple times. I've seen him actually get, and he doesn't even look at the person that took him out. He just runs to his bike and tries to get going again. He doesn't even, it's a bummer. It's a bummer to see that, Canet really has been a little bit the class of the field this year. Sure, Della Porta's looked amazing, but Canet's been completely cleaned out twice, and he's had a mechanical at Mazzano. Otherwise, this championship, Moto3 Championship, would look a little bit different, I think. So, but look, we can all say it. That's why they line up on weekends, and that's why the checkered flag, you got to get there. So we'll keep an eye on that. I think it's going to be good. Did you watch any of the Red Bull Straight Rhythm this weekend?
Of course I did, man. It's Mad Skills Motocross, which you and I, Bobby, a couple of the people go at it tooth and nail every single week. That was fun. I got to watch it. It was fun. Please, for the love of God, tell me you got to watch Travis Pastrana on a 500. Did you get to see it?
You're going to hate me for this, but it was Saturday night. So basically at Chuck Wallace Saturday night, I was hurting. I was hurting pretty bad. And I was sitting on this little bench out in front. And what ended up happening was everybody had got together and they bought me a new pit bike. All my friends. I've got such a great group of friends. Oh, man. Amazing. I just, what everybody did for me Saturday night was incredible. My buddy Oliver, he had fireworks, Greg, that were like real fireworks. So they were going off at Chuck Wall. Everybody saying me happy birthday. But the problem was that I missed the beginning of Red Bull of the Straight Rhythm. I didn't get to see Pastrana, and I think he went up against Tyler Bowers on an old KX 500 or something, didn't he? So I didn't get to actually see that, which is just such a shame. But all my friends were taking good care of me.
So Jay, what kind of little pit bike did they get you?
They got me the raddest little Z125, Kawasaki.
Nice.
And they had a graphic kit all done up for it. And all the people that were kind enough to chip in on this, just all of my crew, just everybody that was there.
Are we going to be able to get that to all the MotoAmerica races for you next year?
That's it. That's what I get it for, because I steal everybody's scooters. MotoAmerica, Nicole Cox probably just wants to punch me every time she sees a text from me, because there are certain tracks where I'll just take the rental car because it's just easier. But then there's some like Road America where I really like riding around there. And so I'm off stealing people's scooters. Now they don't have to worry about it because, all my crew, just an amazing group. I don't want to name everybody, but they all got me this thing chipped in. But getting back to the Red Bull Straight Rhythm, that's why I didn't get to see the big bikes. I didn't get to see the 500s,
for those that didn't get to see it. All right. So it's, I mean, if you don't know what Red Bull Straight Rhythm is, just imagine a supercross drag race. All right. So it's just a bunch of jumps. You got to slow down, you got to accelerate, you got whoops, and it's just a straight shot. It's a lot of fun. It's very fast. But Pastrana goes out there, and on the first big jump of his, you have to win 2 out of 3 to advance. It's an elimination round, whatever. But you got to do 2 out of 3. So Pastrami, as I like to call him, Travis, does a backflip, off the first big jump and ends up winning. He won the first of 3, yes. So then they split, and he does the backflip again in the third one because, Travis, he's just about, he hadn't ridden motocross seriously in a long time. He's got the Nitro Circus thing going on and all that stuff. And so he does a backflip again, and where he was ripping was when he'd get to the whoops, and obviously tall, long legs and all that kind of stuff. He blitzed it, and he didn't it looked like he might have had a chance to win and he would have advanced, but it was quite entertaining. There were a couple of classes. There was the lights class, and then there was, the 250 class. The 250 class was won by Ken Roczen on a 2006 Honda CR 250, beating a 2020 KTM. It was an entertaining race, and Roczen absolutely ripped the whoops section.
Unbelievable, wasn't it? At the end.
Yeah.
But what a cool event, and I think this is so neat being a motocross. Being in motocross, supercross. Those guys, they never take a weekend off. So it really goes to tell you something about what kind of cool event this must be down in Pomona. I did see that Jason Anderson was supposed to ride, and he had those guys, they were over in for the Motocross the Nations. He was in Europe for a month getting ready for that. Then with the Motocross the Nations and everything else, I mean, burnout has to come into play, because I know this would be an event that somebody like Jason Anderson would just love to do. And I saw a post on him saying, man, jumping from a 454 stroke to a 252 stroke, it's actually a bigger jump than what people think. But I think more importantly, it's just the wear and tear on your body, the intensity of being over in Europe for a month, getting ready for Motocross the Nations and things. He wasn't able to line up, but I love all the retro gear. I love, and I can't believe I can't remember who it was, but somebody came out with some Ricky Fowler
the whole
retro gear,
the whole theme,
so cool.
The whole theme was like 80s racing, and they had Dave Despain, do all the opening stuff. Like he had the videos.
Did they really? I didn't see that. That's
yeah,
great.
Dude, it was all like retro. They leading up to it, it was like Despain at the desk, like he was on one of the old, motorcycle shows,
Moto World or whatever it was called,
doing the Dave Despain thing. I'm Dave Despain as we look at the motorcycles race. Oh yeah. It was great.
You do a pretty good impersonation.
Well, I worked with the guy for 4 years, right? Plus, so
yep.
I thought it was good. The KTM 150, actually, a kid named Crown got the crown. I thought that was really clever of people to dig deep in the lights class, but a KTM 151. So it was fun. It's a fun deal. And keep in mind, Jay, you talk about burnout. In 2 weeks' time, they got to do. They're off to Vegas for the Monster Energy Cup. So they just constantly race.
I know, and I saw Anderson said he's not going to that either. I mean, this is a deal where they put $1 million up, isn't it? Not the one to do that. Yeah. And it's just and being healthy for Supercross come January. I mean, Greg, we're on October already. Dude. It is insane. The year is just ripping through, and so, but yeah, I it's an event. Me, Greg, I'm a little bit one of those guys that I'm not a big guy that wants to go to all. I like being home. I did the Supercross thing when I was racing. I went to every Supercross for the first probably 10 years. I used to go to like the first 4 or 5 rounds. I used to even fly over to Phoenix and be there for that. Yeah, I used to go to Phoenix. I used to do all that stuff, and now it's like, man, I just want to stay home. But the Red Bull Straight Rhythm might be something I think could lure me out and go watch next year. It just looks like a fun time. It looks interesting.
I agree with you. All right, Jay, let's move on to some World Superbike stuff because British Superbike. Let's move on to British Superbike because they raced over the weekend, and normally we don't talk about it, but something pretty good's going on over there in BSB in the Superbike class. What's that called anyway? They call it the Bennett's British Superbike Championship.
Yep.
Scott Redding, who is on his way to World Superbike to be teammates with Chaz Davis, won the 2 races at Donnington Park. They had 3 races at Donnington Park earlier on in the season, and he won those, all 3 of them. So He is 5 for 5, and Scott Redding sits on 11 wins so far this season, Jason. 2 second-place finishes and 4 third place. He's leading the championship by 28 points over Josh Brooks, who's also on a Ducati, and Tommy Bridewell is 65 points back on a Ducati with Danny Buchan in 4th on a Kawasaki, the first Yamaha. So, number one, Scott Redding, to me, Jason, in BSB is proven. He checked out, and normally we don't see big checkouts in BSB, but he definitely checked out in these races. 2 things. Number one, Scott continues to prove to me, which he doesn't have to, that he deserves to go off to World Superbike and be a factory Ducati rider. And the second thing is how differently the BSB series looks in terms of machinery versus MotoAmerica. That's dominated obviously by Suzuki and Yamaha, and here it's Ducati and Kawasaki with the BMW thrown in there. What about, did you get to see or hear anything about BSB this weekend?
I got a funny one for you about this when you asked me if I got to see, because I've been trying to get BSB on my computer now for I don't know how long. And my boy Andy, who I mentioned last week, he shows up at Chuckwalla with Mikey, and they tried to figure out how I could get BSB. It's like, oh, it's easy. It's the Mac. You got to just, well, those guys, poor guys, spent probably an hour and a half. And for whatever reason, my computer isn't letting them get through. So I don't get to see it, which bums me out because I'd like to watch it. Yeah. I love that there's so many different brands over there. Obviously, BSB to me is something that we all keep our eye on. I read a lot about it. It's intriguing because it seems that a lot of riders have come from there to go to World Superbike and move forward. I mean, you can look at somebody like Jake Dixon. He went to Moto2. He struggled this year, but now he's on with a real team next year. Paid his dues, maybe, I guess you could say. So there's riders that come out of there that go over to the world scene.
But or world caliber riders that get worked, like Xavi Forés is a good example. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a great point. And they're saying that maybe that's where Leon Haslam might end up again back there next year. So it's a series that I really do like to watch. I think that Redding is definitely showing himself and how good he is. But you look at it, Greg. It's the top three guys are all on Ducatis. So it's not like you kind of got to sit there and think those guys got those bikes sorted out really well. And the Cowie is competitive there too. But top three guys, Tommy Bridewell has done a good job. I mean, he's been passed over the last couple of years by some of these teams where he's been there. The results haven't been there. He's been around a long time. So to see him get his first win this year, he's already signed with his Ducati team for next year. The bike is obviously very good, but these guys got to step up and beat Redding. It's come down now to Brands Hatch, and it looks like he's the man to beat.
He is the man to beat. How about our boy Brandon Paasch, the American, who races in that Moto3 class called the Hell Performance British Motostar Championship, but they race those Moto3 bikes. And he extended his points lead after a third place finish and a win, his fifth win of the season. Have you had a chance to reach out to Paasch and talk to him
a little bit? We go through, I always try to Instagram message him when I see the results. And as you know, I really like Brandon. He's such a good kid. And he's always like, JP, I want to come to California, so he's constantly grinding, constantly working. He's taken a road that's less traveled by so many, where he's just a young kid that doesn't care where he sleeps or goes. He wants to be on a team that can win, and he wants to be on a bike that's competitive. And he's found something over there in England, and what a cool direction he's gone with that. Because I think that he could be over here winning on 600s. I feel like if he could just get settled down and be on a great team, and we've seen him on the TSE bike and how good he's done. And I think that if he could just spend a year, he'd be fine. But whatever he rides, he's going to be good. So we're all going to be pulling for him going into that last round at Brands Hatch for Brandon Paasch. So it's gonna be good, Greg. I think see how that championship ends.
And keep in mind, back in June 14th and the 16th, they were at Brands Hatch GP circuit, which is the same circuit, and Paasch had a second and a win there. So in terms of the results from this year, plus he told me after he had the MotoGP Moto3 one-off wildcard ride that he learned quite a bit. So it just seems like he's coming into his own. So good luck, Paasch, in wrapping up that championship.
And you know what's funny about what you said there? When you look at Brandon's results on paper, it was nothing at that Moto3 race. That poor kid, he was a little bit outclassed, I think, obviously by machinery. He's tall. The biggest thing that hurts Brandon is his size. But again, the positive attitude that he had, and I know Brandon, we can all get down as racers. We can all be a little bit bummed, and he's had plenty of reason in his life to do that when it comes to the motorcycle racing side of it. Man, you would never know it when you talk to him. He's always positive. He's always upbeat. He told you that was the greatest weekend of his life. And I know he's back there battling with himself essentially at that race. But he said he learned a lot. And for a young man like that can take you a long way. And hopefully next year we'll be able to read some of the things. I kind of have an idea or a sense of some of the stuff that's been going on with Brandon, just through some other channels of people. And let's just hope that something good comes together for him next year, as you say, Greg. This weekend, World Superbike back in action. We already have a world champion crowned, obviously Johnny Ray. They're back in Argentina, a place where Ray won both of the rounds last year. I've never been there, never had seen the track until last year, but I do remember it from watching it, from watching it on the TV or watching it on the computer. a lot of good things going on in World Superbike right now. I think that there's been a lull over the last couple of years, but this year with Ducati coming back in with obviously a bike that was more than capable of winning with Bautista, it's definitely shook things up. But more so, there's a lot of movement in the paddock, but and there's still a big battle for third right now in the championship between three riders. I believe, Greg, it's Alex Lowe's, Van der Mark, Top Rex in there. I think even Haslam's in there for, there's four guys actually going for that top, that third spot. Which is an important spot. Get to go to the banquet and all that good thing.
Oh yeah.
What are you looking for this weekend?
I think World Supersport. I'm going to keep an eye on World Supersport. Yep. I mean, obviously, I love watching Superbike, and that's great, and I'll keep an eye on that. But my focus is, Krummenacher over Caricasulo only by 10 points in that championship. World Supersport 300 is decided. World Superbike's decided. So I'm going to be focused on Supersport because it's entertaining racing, and it's not Moto3, but it has Moto3 elements in it where, we've seen guys locked in the championship fall off, get knocked off, and those types of things. So you have Krummenacher at 193, you have Caricasulo at 183, you have Cluzel back in 155, and Lucas Maes, who's the first of the non-Yamahas, at 123. So it's all top heavy at this point looking at that. So I'm gonna be looking forward to that. And if Ana Carrasco can win out, it'll be interesting to see now that championship's over, because in World Supersport 300, Carrasco and Daru are tied in second spot at 106. So that's still to be decided, second and third in that championship. And it's like you're saying, there's bonus money involved. There's a spot at the banquet for them as well. And I mean,
I don't know.
Yeah,
Greg, I don't know if those guys go to this round. I think their last round's in Doha, which you'll see here in a minute in our quick shift. We do have a little information on that. But
oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I thought the 300s don't travel to Argentina. I could be wrong, but I think Doha is their last one.
Yeah, you might be right on that one. So, that's right. Because I think I saw Anna, just like Carrasco, talking about like focusing on her program. So, and what they have. Yeah. So you have World Superbike and World Supersport only that are going there. I just checked the schedule. So thanks for catching me up on that one, dude. Yep. 100%.
I had to catch it. Very rarely do I get to actually catch you on anything, but I just thought about that.
Please ask the internet. I make mistake after mistake after mistake.
Because you're so brilliant at everything you do.
Yeah. It's
I must be in a good mood.
Are you in a good mood? Hey, you know what, Jason? That is the signal that it's time for us to move on to our quick shift segment. Are you ready to do that, guy?
Let's do it.
All right, let's see. I'm going to hit this thing here. And Jason, do you know ARAI helmets are lined with an antimicrobial material? Yep, the interior liner gives you odor resistance, dirt resistance, and those antimicrobials that you love so much. Well, you get to stay fresher longer and enjoy a more comfortable ride in the latest ARAI helmet. So check out ARAIAmericas.com. Pick what you like and head down to your local dealer for fitment and grab a new lid. ARAIAmericas.com. Because this is our quick shift segment presented by ARAI, if I didn't mention that, where we're going to rip off a couple of things, and then for 60 seconds or so, don't hold us to it, I'm going to go, and Jason's going to keep talking, though he's not supposed to talk anymore. That's the way we work it. So, Jason, let me start things off. Breaking rules, bro. Okay. American, I love this. And American Andrew Short won the 2019 Rally du Maroc, an endurance off-road race that's in the Paris-Dakar, vein. He also wrapped up second in the 2019 FIM Cross Country Rallies World Championship. All told, by the way, Shorty was on his bike for 18 hours, 3 minutes and 15 seconds to win that race. He won by, I think it was right around 3 minutes. So for a guy like Andrew Short, who has now embraced this whole off-road thing, what do you think? What do you think about Shorty's win?
I love it, because I always thought Andrew Short was a quality guy. I never met him, but I always thought, man, the guy just seems like a quality guy. I know you have connections with a few of the motocross guys. I was always kind of a fan of his, always rooted for him. You could just kind of get that with guys. You kind of root for him, even though you don't know him. He was always that guy. But it seems like he's found a home in this endurance, like kind of adventure, like racing stuff. It's pretty gnarly. The Paris-Dakar stuff is just
it is gnarly.
Pretty crazy things.
And that rally, Jay, the one that they were just at, all the heavy hitters that are going to be racing in the Paris-Dakar, the Dakar Rally, I guess they call it now, were there because that's where they started in Morocco. So
it's crazy. Yeah. And it's dangerous, man. That stuff is gnarly. Really? It's dangerous. But for him to do that, congrats. I mean, to Andrew Short, and it's definitely made it now where I think a lot of Americans are going to get drawn to the Paris Dakar Rally a little bit more. So congrats to him. Dallas Daniels, Greg, I love this story, is headed to the final World Supersport 300 race in Doha at the end of the month on a Yamaha of all things, which is really interesting to me. So what do you think about Dallas going over and doing some World 300 Supersport?
I mean, I love it because
me too.
We kind of thought, with his exit from MotoAmerica and him concentrating in the essence and racing flat track, which obviously he had great success towards the end of the season, did the young Dallas Daniels. I thought maybe his road race career would be over. And I've talked to him extensively about road racing, and he likes it. He prefers dirt track, but he likes road racing a lot. So to get an opportunity like this, I thought is tremendous. It's that Blue Crew deal, and I believe he's going to be the first American involved in that. So this Jason, I mean, I don't want to say this to Dallas, you know what I mean? But this could have some implications as to opening up the eyes of Europe to the good quality of racers that America actually has here. What do you think?
My biggest fear, I just want him on a good bike.
Yeah.
I know how good Dallas Daniels is. I want him on a good bike. That's it. And it seems to me that the 300 Yamaha over in World Supersport, even though they say the rules are the exact same as we have here, it just seems like the Yamahas over there are just they're competitive. They're right up in the front. So with the Cowies, with the KTMs, it's not a hard track to learn. It's very flowing. On those little bikes, they're going to be wide open absolutely everywhere. So I think that it'll be a good track, but you got to keep them elbows and knees in, Dallas. Have fun over there.
Yeah, but the other thing about Dallas too is he's not afraid to, rough it up if he needs to with all his flat track experience too. So he's not going to be bullied around. All right, rumors of Maverick Viñales, Jason, moving to Ducati in 2020. If that rumor is true, in your opinion, is that a move worth making?
Let me ask you another question. Yes, to start with, but let me ask you a question.
Okay. Yeah.
I feel like this is going to sound really stupid, but I actually thought about this last night. Every time before we do our podcast, I think of things. Doesn't the Yamaha team seem a little bit dysfunctional to you?
The factory team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
the factory.
I feel like this is just a personal feeling. I feel like Rossi's kind of holding the whole thing hostage at this point. I still know how good the guy is. He's a top 5 guy, but now you've kind of got this young blood. They cannot let Quartararo get away. They've got to try to get him under contract. They're already promising him a bike as good as Viñales and Rossi. Does he want that to start with? Because those guys, he's beating those guys every weekend. We constantly hear about how Viñales is kind of on the chopping block, or he might go somewhere else. And it's like, well, Viñales, he's won more races than Rossi has in the last couple of years. His results would show that theoretically he's closer to the front at most races. Yeah, Rossi's beat him, don't get me wrong, but when you have races like this last weekend, he was 1.3 off, and I don't know, Greg, I feel like that there's got to be some shakeup and some changes. And the fact that Viñales is even thinking about moving to Ducati, I wouldn't blame him. So yeah, that's my take. What's your feeling on that? Like, do you kind of get where I'm coming from?
Yeah, no, I totally get where you're coming from. My brain is off in, other than Casey Stoner, who has Ducati actually made into a racer that other people want? You know what I mean? Like, this is
to your point, you asked me a question a couple days ago that I thought was very on point, that how many guys have got off of Ducati and gone on to be successful. Like, it almost seems like the last stop, almost seems like the last place. So that's something that I definitely think we have to watch. Also along these lines, Maverick Viñales spoke about the performance of Fabio Quartararo. He was quoted on Crash.net as saying, "We have to understand how he rides because we can improve a lot on the bike and we will see," end quote. What do you think about that?
Well, that's very interesting because you have the guy who's on the factory team looking at the guy who's on the satellite team who's, they say he's on the same bike, and Quartararo got 500 more RPM for this race, Jay. But on downshifts, people I think that it was like motor that he got on downshifts. I think it's smart of Viñales, actually. If the guy is beating you on the same bike, how do you not go, okay, what is he doing differently? And this is the beauty part of electronics. They can sit there and overlay maps and do those things. Or with MotoGP, Jason, with all the camera angles and everything that they have, I have to imagine that Viñales could get video that maybe we don't normally see, isolated video of an entire lap or 5 laps of Quartararo or something, and really start to diagnose it and see what's going on, because that's Viñales saying, I don't think Quartararo is a better racer than I am. What I think is, or better rider than I am, what I think is he's doing something differently that I'm not seeing. So I think it's a good move. What about you?
I think it's a great move. I think you gotta any barriers that might be up, you got to pull them down. You got to figure out what somebody's doing a little bit better here or there. And I can't really honestly say that Quartararo is doing something better. I feel like there's something in the first quarter to half of the races that Quartararo's got sorted on his bike. But we've seen this from Viñales because Rossi gets away from him at the beginning of most of these races up until the last 2 or 3 or 4 and gets that gap. And Viñales is always coming from the back. So there's something that they've got to sort out. There's something that they've got to sort out there, G-Dub, to where they can get themselves up to the front earlier.
Well, this is the good thing about Marc Marquez winning this championship early. Marc Marquez, by wrapping this championship up, in my view, has now released the entire paddock. And I'm sure that, KTM and Aprilia, who's far back, but it's kind of released the entire paddock now to just focus on 2020, because Yamaha's biggest thing is they need more motor to be competitive with the Ducati and the Honda without losing the handling. And so does Suzuki, by the way, because obviously, mid-season they were on point and now they've kind of lost the plot a little bit. I don't know if that's rider or that's bike or whatever, but that's the focus now. And I've already started to hear rumblings from riders talking about 2020, because you're locked into that motor at the beginning of the year. The manufacturer is locked into that. Whatever power plant they have is what they have to run all year long. And other than tweaking electronics, you're screwed, So you've got to figure that out. And last year, we heard Ducati basically concentrate on the bike itself and not the motor because their motor was so strong. Now I think Ducati's got to be focused on, now we've got to get more engine to compete with the Honda, and we've got to figure out how to make this bike better. If I had to guess, I'm going to guess and say that if there's going to be a dramatic move in the paddock, I somehow think that Lorenzo's going to find his way back to Ducati. I just think, I know that they've said, no, it's not going to happen. Lorenzo's a Repsol guy. But dude, if you're Ducati at this point, Dovizioso's not developing that bike any better than they've had at the beginning of the year.
Right. Well, no, I think overall, and I've said this, and between World Superbike and MotoGP, Ducati has missed the window of winning a world championship the last 3 years when their bikes have this year in World Superbike, but the last few years in MotoGP, their bike, I feel, has been the best overall. I think that would have been the bike to be on to win a championship if you were going to take it to Marquez, and they've missed that opportunity. And I think some of it comes down to rider. Like we've said, though, Greg, I think Lorenzo, had he stayed on Ducati this year, would have been one of the odds-on favorites going into the season to win the championship on a Ducati. And it just didn't happen. And then you look at what Bautista did; it's the same thing. So, and I think that's for another podcast where we can really discuss how I view that stuff, or how we view that stuff with the Ducati pool. And there's got to be a shakeup there. There's got to be, I believe in MotoGP, there has to be a rider change for them. I love Dovi. I think he does a great job, but I just don't think he's the guy that can put it together for a full season to win a championship. There's too much inconsistencies. The guy comes out of qualifying practice 1 a lot where he's got to go into qualifying 2. They need somebody that's going to be up there every single weekend, top 3 without question.
Yeah, I agree with you. All right, Jason, that'll do it for us. Let's get to the race calendar real quick, because obviously World Superbike's in Argentina. So if you're in Argentina, go check that out. If you like drag racing, motorcycle drag racing, NHRA is in Charlotte. Hare and Hound is in Lucerne Valley in California. GNCC is in Jean, West Virginia, as they're getting close to wrapping up their season. I think I'm going to go to the last race, actually, of the year, GNCC in Indiana. I'll let you know about that, Jay. And then AMA Pro Hill Climb is in Oregonia, Ohio. I'm going to look at the weather. I might get on the motorcycle and ride over to Oregonia, Ohio, and check out AMA Pro Hill Climb this weekend. If things work out, I think that might be something fun for me to do. So we'll check all that out. All right. Anything that we didn't talk about on this podcast that you want to cover, Jason?
Nope. Think we're solid. Let's get through this weekend, enjoy it. And I'll be back at the track on Monday. We got to figure out our podcast though, G-Dub, because I'm out of here next Tuesday. So we got to sort that out.
Where are you going? Where are you at?
Texas.
Oh, you're going to Texas.
Going to the big house of Texas.
All right. Well, maybe we'll have to try to figure that out. Maybe, bang it out on a Monday, Tuesday now that we're home, Monday or a Sunday or something like that. So we'll get it sorted out so we can bring everybody something, because we're planning on doing a podcast each week until really the race season's over, and probably do maybe something every other week, depending on how silly season ends up, until Supercross starts. All right. That's kind of what we're talking about. All right, good. Well, Jason, enjoy your weekend. Enjoy your little Z125. I'm so jealous you got a new bike. By the way, they got a sticker kit. Is there some sticker on there that says that, Greg White's my BFF? Is it on there at all?